big ups to the memory of Walt Disney wanting to preserve a good family outing, but give me a goddamn glass of wine.
I think the Beauty and the Beast restaurant at Disneyland in LA or in Anaheim is like almost like a food court kind of thing. So that's why I was like, Beauty and the Beast, weird. But
it's a wine.
Well, you can sit. There's like sit down restaurant at Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yep.
And
oh, you mean Disneyland?
Yeah. There's that special lot 7 or whatever that like only cool people can get into.
Here's your cool people menu and everything.
The Star Wars thing at Disneyland is going to serve alcohol.
Well,
it would look blue. There should be some blue cocktails.
But you have to get in a laser sword fight in order to order.
It was funny when the TV guy was here, and he was great. There were actually 2 of them, but there was like a main person. He saw my setup here, and he goes, "Oh, you're a musician." I said, "No," and I said, "Guess again," and he goes, "Podcaster." And I was like, "All right, yeah." It turns out he's a musician.
Oh, okay.
And plays in a band that now I can't remember the name of it. I wrote it down. But because he saw the Focusrite and he was like, "Oh yeah, I have the same thing." And so talked a little bit about gear, and I told him all about Daily Tech News Show, and he was like, "So you like review like cameras?" I said, "Well, that makes it in sometimes, but no, it's more sort of overall tech news." Mm-hmm. And he's so we're like, "So like laptops?" I said, "Well, that here, let me read you what's on our rundown today. Here are the things that we're talking about on the show today." And he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, this is like a tech show."
Yeah. Daily, actually.
Yep. News. Yep, Daily Tech News Show. I say, as I always say with everybody, Daily Tech News Show. It's exactly what it sounds like.
Right on the tin.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Tinned mackerel. So what's in that?
Right. Yeah. Does your chicken have chicken in it?
Sardines and olive oil. So what's in here?
What are we talking about exactly?
So are there sardines? Does it have any fish? It does.
Well, chicken of the sea, very confusing.
How much chicken is in here? None at all.
I have to admit that because I'm referencing Jessica Simpson, she famously said, okay, everybody knows what I'm saying. I never really thought about it that much one way or another, but I didn't think of it as tuna either.
Oh, I always thought of it as
chicken
tuna.
of the sea just sounded like chicken to me. I didn't get it.
You had not experienced it.
I felt she was wrongly shamed, or perhaps I should have been shamed as well.
I think it comes from an older generation because that's how they used to market tuna
as chicken of the sea.
Like chicken of the sea.
Like I probably would have thought it was like chickens in a farm by the ocean. I don't know.
It was just cod. Yeah, it's cod or not cod.
I think part of that moment was just that was like reality TV too.
And the way it was delivered and her whole reputation.
Yeah. All right, 30 seconds to air. Ms. Sarah Lane, would you care to read the introductory statement?
I care very much. Yes.
And does that mean you'll do it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I care a lot. Absolutely not.
I care a lot to not do it. Okay. 10 seconds, everybody. Places, everyone. Put on your robes and your wizard hats. 3, 2, 1.
Thanks to everybody who supports Daily Tech News Show directly. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Thursday, October 25th, 2018 in Los Angeles. I'm Tom Merritt.
And from Studio Feline 3.0, I'm Sarah Lane.
And from Oakland, California, I'm Justin Robert Young.
And I'm the show's producer somewhere in LA.
And your name is?
Roger. Oh, yeah, I keep forgetting the name. That's really important. Very important.
Hey, folks.
Unless you're changing it.
We're going to talk some art today. Are you ready to talk art?
Yes.
Because we are art experts, not.
Art aficionados.
But we're going to talk about art and AI and how it all ties together. I learned some things today. Hope you will too. Let's start with a few tech things you should know.
Xiaomi launched the Mi Mix 3 in Beijing Thursday with a magnetic slider to access the front-facing camera instead of a notch. It also has a 6.4-inch 1080p OLED screen and 6 to 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs to 256 gigs of storage. However, there's also a Forbidden City Palace Museum Special Edition variant, which comes with 10 gigs of RAM and 256 gigabytes as well. The Mi Mix 3 will also come in a 5G version to launch in Q1 next year, so says the company. The Mi Mix 3 goes on sale first in China on November 1st, with the Forbidden City model coming later next month.
Does anyone else think the Forbidden City Palace Museum sounds like a whiteboard exercise where 3 people shouted ideas and they just wrote all of them down?
Yeah, Forbidden City might have
Palace
been fine.
Forbidden City. Sure.
Yeah.
That's the name. Done. Okay.
Right.
Sounds like they just took the Chinese versions of Apple's OS naming convention, slapped them all together.
From Chinese history. Yeah.
Google Maps is now letting users follow their favorite businesses like restaurants, bars, or stores. By tracking a business, you'll get news from those places like upcoming events, special offers, and other updates right in the For You tab of Google Maps. Google also says businesses can use the Google Maps platform to start reaching potential customers before they open to the public.
Oh, sorry. I was distracted by Derek Silver showing pictures of breakfast sausages in our Discord. Amazon announced that third-party devices can now work with Alexa for Business, which lets users dial into conference calls, check business calendars, and look up info in tools like Salesforce. Amazon says it's working with Plantronics, iHome, BlackBerry, LinkPlay, and Extron, among others, to bring voice assistant capability with a software update to those companies' devices, things like whiteboards and conference equipment. All right. Let's talk a little bit more about one person's reaction to Apple CEO's Beware the Data Industrial Complex speech that we talked about yesterday.
We knew there would be rebuttals. In response to Apple CEO Tim Cook, who spoke out against data collection at a keynote speech during the International Conference of Data Protection and Privacy Commissioners Conference in Brussels on Wednesday, former Facebook Chief Security Officer Alex Stamos tweeted that Apple needs to come clean about how it blocks ways to provide secure ways to access apps in China. Stamos said, quote, "We don't want the media to create an incentive structure that ignores treating Chinese citizens as less deserving of privacy protections because a CEO is willing to badmouth the business model of their primary competitor who uses advertising to subsidize cheaper devices."
So this is a former Facebooker subtweeting, well, not subtweeting.
Well, he wasn't really subtweeting. It was pretty clear.
I mean, he didn't have
At Apple, but it's championing Google, right?
I mean, not
Google would be their primary competitor that subsidizes their product.
if you read through the whole
would be the one. Google's one that just got in trouble for the Chinese thing.
Hold on. That is like one side swipe at Apple. He doesn't really seem to be supporting Google here because he says, I agree with Tim Cook about the need for a privacy regulation. I agree with this stuff, but Apple shouldn't be let off the hook. I think he's more attacking Apple than defending Google.
We mentioned this yesterday when we were talking with Scott about Tim Cook's fiery words, as we called them, and that sure, it's easy for Apple to say things like this, right? But it's also, as Stamos is pointing out, you know, you are taking pot shots at your competitor. So this is not just because it's, you know, for the good of humanity. There are business strategies in place here.
Oh, of course. I mean, but they have long taken the stance that in a world where now the message of if it's free, you're the product. Apple has always said, no. That's why we charge so much. We get our money up front, and that's that. I think that these are legitimate questions to be raising about Apple and their relationship with China. But it is interesting. It's interesting to me where these lines are being drawn and where, if you're gonna slam Apple, where are you going to do it? And do you hit him right in the hypocrisy as Mr.
Stamos.
Yeah.
And Alex left Facebook maybe not on the friendliest of terms with Facebook. So that's another reason why I'm like, yeah, it's tempting to want to draw this as a Facebook and Google teaming up sort of thing, but I don't think that's it. I think it's more Stamos. I mean, what he does is he names and shames The Verge and the Washington Post and the New York Times, saying none of you mentioned China in any of your stories. And to be fair, neither did we yesterday. We talked about how it's easy for Apple to criticize Google's privacy policy, but I think all of us sort of fall into the habit of saying, well, China's an entirely different situation. That's not saying it's good, bad, or indifferent. That's saying that's a separate topic, because you have a whole lot more going on there. But on the other hand, I think Alex Stamos is right, at least to call out and say, well, hold on, though. Apple being so critical of everyone else and kind of setting themselves up as the paragon isn't exactly the paragon that they would like you to think. If you look at China, and most tech companies aren't looking at China as something they need to resist. They're trying to cooperate and build in China. I'm not saying that's wrong of them, but it is a topic worth looking at and evaluating when it's regarding the rights of individuals and privacy, et cetera.
The New York Times reports that Clorox paid to license information from Kinsa, which sells internet-connected thermometers that sync with an app to track fevers and symptoms. The data shows Clorox, which zip codes from around the country, had increases in fevers. In those areas, Clorox increased ads for products like its disinfecting wipes. Kinsa says that thermometers are in more than 500,000 American households and says its illness data contains no identifying personal information before being passed on to other companies. But critics like the Electronic Privacy Information Center says that though Kinsa appears to be using information in a privacy-compliant manner, federal regulation around how this type of consumer data is handled is needed.
Yeah.
From the editor's desk topic tomorrow. Yes, we don't want to be targeted without transparency, but if, and I know there's ifs here, but if Clorox is aggregating the data and all they're doing is telling an advertiser, hey, if you want to advertise more where we think people are ill, we can tell you what zip codes they are. I'm not sure that that's a problem.
Or Kinsa, rather, you're saying, rather than Clorox, because Clorox would be the advertiser.
Right. No, you're right. If Kinsa is saying that to Clorox, thank you.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's an issue.
Well,
it's starting to be mission creep on combating advertising targeting, because there was overreach, but I don't think this is overreach.
So look, Kinsa sells a product that has an app, right? I'm assuming that in the EULA for that app, you are uploading data. Now, if the question is, should that be more clear to people? Should it be more upfront that your anonymized data is being sold? Probably, but I don't know if
personal data anymore. If you say we're getting a high number of people with high temperatures in this zip code, and it's not in any way it's not even just anonymized. It's like not individualized. And maybe they were selling data that was more.
But it is still your data, and I can understand where people should have the right to say whether or not they're doing it, and I assume they do. I'm not saying that Kinsa's doing anything wrong. I'm just saying
where is the end of the line though? Where is it no longer personal data? If it's like personal data contributing to a pool that creates a separate data point, that's what I'm talking about.
When it's your fever that they're generating the data,
targeting.
But it's sort of. But Kinsa at no point is denying that this is happening. This is actually very transparent. Kinsa is just saying, don't worry, there's not personal data being sold to a company like Clorox. It's not really, to me, I think where people get weird is because we're talking about healthcare, right? And sure, Clorox is not, the same thing as going to the doctor, but it's personal data that's a little bit different than, hey, how many people in this zip code went and saw this movie?
Yeah, this is no different than Twitter saying, "Oh, we see a lot of people saying they're sick online, and in this zip code." It's not infringing on their personal data there. It's no different than logging the number of visits to a doctor's office.
No. Again, I'm not saying that it's bad, and we understand when we roll into Twitter that we are Xing off a box that says that people are allowed to sell keywords and data and stuff like that. And I'm saying that Kinsa has the right to do it, and you have the right to know, hey, when I'm using this and I'm syncing it with the app, that there's going to be an element of this, that they're going to use this totally anonymized version of this data to then make money. I'm fine with all that. But I do think that there's an element that we should know that should be clear that that's the deal that we are making, even if it's just another thing that we are checking off in a box.
I think they did make that clear, though.
Again, all I'm saying is that if we are talking about further regulations, right? That's what the Electronic Privacy Information Center is saying, that there needs to be further regulations. That's the only thing that I could think of that you would ask for in terms of further regulating this process. That's all.
In its triennial publication of exemptions to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, Carla D. Hayden, the current Librarian of Congress for the United States, on the recommendation of Karen A. Temple, the acting Register of Copyrights and Director of the U.S. Copyright Office, included an exemption to the Digital Millennium Copyright Act for repairs and maintenance. The exemption applies to smartphones, tractors, cars, and home appliances and home systems like your HVAC, your heater, your air conditioner, that lets a user break DRM for, and I quote, the maintenance of a device or system in order to make it work in accordance with its original specifications. Another change expanded the exemption for unlocking a used phone and tablet to apply to new phones and tablets. Doesn't have to be used anymore, as well as an exemption for jailbreaking a device being expanded to include smart speakers. You now have the right to jailbreak your smart speaker. These rules go into effect in the United States on October 28th.
Nice.
Yeah. What else is there to say?
It's a good update.
It's a win for the right to repair that a lot of people didn't think was going to come. And I'm surprised with the blazing headlines that right to repair usually gets, that this isn't being trumpeted all over the internet today. It's almost like they didn't want to win. They just wanted clicks.
That seems like something that'll be in the $5 Friday. Sources tell TechCrunch that Facebook is building an app called Lasso to let users record and share videos of themselves lip syncing or dancing to licensed music.
Oh boy.
Yeah. If it sounds like Musical.ly or TikTok, which Musical.ly has been rolled into, that's because it is. One source says, quote, it's full screen, built for teens, fun and funny, and focused on creation, end quote. The team developing it is under Facebook's principal lead product designer, Brandy Voss. App Annie ranks TikTok as the number 5 iPhone app in the United States.
Now, even though I sort of made a joke like, oh, this sounds like something I would use, which it probably isn't, I will say that, and not just teenagers, because I don't follow a whole lot of teenagers on Instagram, if any, but a lot of folks who, at least, I've followed on Snapchat in the past and have moved on to Instagram stories, do this exact thing. Many times it's in the car. Singing along to your favorite song, lip syncing and looking cute with a little, filter on your face type thing. This is a real thing. A lot of people do this.
Yeah. In fact, Facebook at one point, according to TechCrunch, looked at buying Musical.ly and may have decided at the time it wasn't popular enough. But as TikTok, which is what Musical.ly has become, is rising in popularity, Facebook has decided, well, since somebody in China bought Musical.ly, maybe we build our own.
Which they will, and it will be less successful. And then it'll die. This is the circle of Facebook's cloning of apps. Sometimes it works, sometimes it's that they are adding a good feature to a product that obviously is very, very popular.
Well, if you count Instagram, Facebook has some standalone apps that are pretty popular. Messenger is another.
Sure.
Certainly wasn't the first messaging app out there, but I know what you mean, Justin. Usually Facebook just says, well, let's just do exactly what the other guy is doing, and it doesn't work out very well.
I mean, this is part of the thing. This is what they do, is they try to buy. If they can't buy it at the price they want, they try to build it, and either the app does not do well as the world moves along, and their side product does whatever it will do.
Facebook just has to make its own kind of music, sing its own special song.
Oh boy, more lip syncing and dancing. I like the dancing vids, actually. Keep them coming. Those are fun. But enough about Facebook. Let's talk about Twitter. Twitter reported higher than expected earnings and revenue for the third quarter, with earnings per share of 21 cents and revenue of $758 million. That's up 29% year over year. Advertising revenue in particular reached $650 million, also a yearly increase of 29%. So that's good news. It's the company's fourth straight profitable quarter. But monthly active users fell 1% year over year, the second quarter in a row that Twitter missed monthly active user estimates as well. Daily active users rose 9% on the year for the 8th straight quarter of daily active user growth. And Twitter Chief Financial Officer Ned Siegel said a third of the people who see Twitter each day have never been on the platform before.
So, I mean, yeah, the fall of the monthly active users, Twitter has lots of explanations for, including GDPR and getting rid of bots. The fact that their daily active users are growing, although they won't tell us how many they have yet, they're just giving percentages, I think means that the strategy is working. They're making money and they're growing the number of people who visit Twitter. And for a while, Twitter has realized it's not so much about participation, it's getting people to come to the platform. So
coming to a third of the people who visit Twitter each day, which I assume does not mean you saw a tweet on that was embedded somewhere. It means that
I think it does.
I think it
oh,
does.
well, then that's a silly thing to say. I mean, that you could see a tweet without trying.
Yeah. Well, that's okay if that is allowing them to make some revenue, and they say, look, we need to be better at converting them into regular Twitter users so that they are monthly active users. Then I think that's fine. I think Twitter's actually kind of on track right now. We'll see if it continues. Folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, be sure to subscribe to dailytechheadlines.com. All right. Obvious, a Paris-based collective of artists, has created a, you know what? Actually, I got screwed up here, and I told the punchline to the joke before. Sorry, I looked at the wrong square. Thursday, Christie's sold a print on canvas titled "Portrait of Edmund Bellamy" for $432,000. The expected price was between $7,000 and $10,000. The work was created by a collective called Obvious, which is made up of 3 25-year-old French students. So far, if I hadn't screwed it up, you'd be asking, why are you talking about this on DTNS? The students used a generative adversarial network to create the picture. It was trained on a data set of historical portraits until it could create its own. Now, there is controversy, though, about Obvious selling this on Christie's. They used open source code from AI artist Robbie Barrett. Hugo Cassel-Dupré, the tech lead for Obvious, says, look, if you're just talking about the code, there's not a big percentage that has been modified. But if you talk about the work on the computer, there's a lot of effort here. However, other AI artists say that the works from Obvious don't appear much different if you just run Barrett's code without any modification at all. So they're a little critical of Obvious making all this money off it, when other AI artists, which you may not have realized, have been toiling away creating works of the same sort. In fact, German artist Mario Klingemann told The Verge, "To me, this is dilettante's work, the equivalent of a 5-year-old scribbling that only parents can appreciate. But I guess people who have never seen something like this before, it might appear novel and different." One difference to note, though, is that Obvious isn't taking credit for the art, which a lot of times other AI artists do. In fact, the portrait is signed with part of the generative adversarial network's algorithm. Many AI artists think, though, that giving the credit to the algorithm creates a false impression that machine learning systems are more complex and autonomous than they actually are. Also, worth noting, Christie's approached Obvious about the auction because they kind of want to make a splash. Sotheby's over there with half-shredded Banksy works. Christie's got to do something, right? So, couple of questions here. Is this art? And who do you credit if it is?
Congratulations, AI artists. You now have stepped to a level of discourse that only human-made artwork could aspire to.
That makes it
backbiting, navel-gazing differences in what is art and what isn't, who deserves credit, controversy, words like dilettante being thrown around as a pejorative. Welcome, AI. You are now truly artistes.
Yeah, this isn't a totally perfect comparison, but what if in the music industry, a song, of which there are many, that sampled lots of different original works of art, was credited to the software program that allowed the current artist to make this conglomerate song? I mean, everyone would have a meltdown, or at least everybody in the music industry who cares about this sort of thing. So if you could sort of compare it to something like that, I can see why crediting AI or an algorithm with artwork that without actually crediting the original artists, I don't even know how you would do that exactly. You know, it'd be too many signatures on a single print, but it is a little wonky. And I'm not sure that the fellow who was critical of Obvious's tactic is totally wrong in this sense.
Yeah, and he's got a lot of friends who are on his side. If you read the Verge article about this, there are several other quotes from Merritt, even being slightly critical. They're torn. They like the fact that this has brought AI art as an endeavor higher up in the public consciousness, but they don't love the way Obvious went about it. On the other hand, I'm like, this is an entirely new form of expression. I'm a hold off calling it art or not, but it isn't something where you can say there's a tool and there's an artist. It merges more. So the tool is the GAN, the generative adversarial network, but it has more of an impact on the art than just a brush does.
Look, I don't want to boil it down to just this, but I will. I think that there's a lot. I don't know if these quotes would be quite as spicy if it weren't damn near $500,000 on the other end of it. I think that's part of this. If Obvious
that's a little red hot chili pepper to the
if they sold that thing for $300 at the swap shop, it would not be as big a deal as them flipping it for damn near $500,000.
And they basically have sold. This is not the first AI made work to sell.
Yes.
It's the first one to be auctioned by a major auction house.
Yeah. No, if I were Obvious, I would put my arm around my AI and say, don't worry, little buddy. They hate us because they ain't us.
I still am fascinated by this question of what is it? Is it art? I don't know if I like it, but it's art. Like, you know, like it's
art.
I guess.
Well, I mean, anything is art. It's I don't think we should be questioning whether or not this is art. It very much is art, but so is me, you know, drawing a line with a pencil. So I mean
yeah. Look, the part of the reason why I'm sure this sold for what it sold for was because everybody same reason why the person who got their Banksy half shredded is thrilled is because they now get the half shredded Banksy. There's a story that goes along with it. There's headlines that go along with it. This sold for the number that it sold at because somebody's going to be able to hang this up on their wall and say, oh, you know, that was the first AI created thing sold for auction. And I bought it. Look at me.
The other thing in The Verge points out, like Marcel Duchamp made art called Ready Made that was essentially taking advantage of that kind of thing on purpose. And they're like, why didn't Obvious bill this as the first AI ready-made, as the first Duchamp of AI? I think some of them are like, we would have felt a lot better. It's them sort of trying to build the AI as the artist that has some of the feathers ruffled.
Everyone just annoyed that Christie's came to Obvious first. That they were just there's somebody who...
You're saying Christie's came to the obvious conclusion.
Yeah, they did. And everyone else is really annoyed about it.
Well, this is definitely one of those situations that doesn't have an answer. And we haven't covered all the potential angles on this. So keep the conversation going. Send us an email. Ask to make your comments known on Patreon. feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. There's other ways to interact, right, Sarah?
Oh, that's true. We are all we're on. You screwed me up, Tom. Everybody who participates in our subreddit, look out for art stories and please vote on them and submit your own, as long as there's a tech angle, at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. If you want to hang out on Facebook, that's cool too. Facebook.com/group/dailytechnewsshow.
Let's check out the mailbag.
Okay. Natron wrote in about our conversation yesterday about, is Apple going to limit its new TV service to Apple device owners, as has been rumored, but we don't know for sure. Natron says, one thing worth keeping in mind about Apple's TV shows, you might not have to buy the most expensive Apple device. They're just saying you have to own an Apple device. Wouldn't an Apple TV or a $150 iPhone 5 get people the shows? Even a used iPhone should work. Plus, if it gets people into the iOS ecosystem, that's still a plus for Apple.
Yeah,
I
but
doubt it.
if you can only watch it on that device, now it's limited your abilities. Like, oh, I still can't watch it on my Roku, so now I have to buy an Apple TV and a phone. It depends on where you want to watch things. Right? Want to watch things in multiple places? I don't know.
I suspect that this audience, the Daily Tech News Show audience, will react to this in a way that will not be as big of a problem for the wider tech community. I think that
I'm starting to be of the opinion that there's going to be a for-pay version of this, maybe as part of Apple Music for people who don't have iOS devices.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then the conversation becomes, oh yeah, $10 a month. And then I say, well, but I have an iPhone. Like, oh yeah, lucky you. Huh?
Yeah. Then it becomes then Natron's point becomes even more relevant, which is like, oh, well, then just buy the iPhone. And then you should be able to just use that login everywhere. That might help.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Christensen, the amateur traveler, not joining us with a segment today, but writing in an email saying, I like Sarah's idea about the smart fridge. We had mechanisms now to limit our kids' screen time. Maybe we should give them control over limiting our fridge time. I'm sorry, your fridge access is locked out after 8 p.m. Or maybe allow access to the salad drawer, but not the ice cream drawer.
Ooh, yeah. This is in reference to Scott Johnson saying he wishes his fridge would limit the things that it lets him eat. And I said, well, what about a smart fridge? Where it just doesn't let you buy things that you're not supposed to buy. But yeah, locking your kids out of the fridge and the ice cream drawer.
Report every month.
Brutal.
Which drawers got opened?
The smart home has gotten very brutal.
Yeah.
What isn't brutal is having Justin Robert Young with us whenever he can join. It was 2 days this week, in fact. Justin, what else is going on with you? Because I know you're a traveling fool.
All right. So obviously we have a couple really big political things coming up. Midterms are right around the corner. You can keep up with every twist and turn of it with my free political newsletter. You can sign up for that at freepoliticalnewsletter.com. I'm also doing a live show. If you are in the Bay Area, San Francisco, on election night, that is November 6th at 7 p.m. I'm doing a live show called Wave Watch, an election night extravaganza. We've got some of the craziest campaign ads of the year. We have a live decision desk. I guarantee you it will be a very, very, very fun show. You can get your tickets to that at bit.ly/wavewatch. And one more thing, I will be at TwitchCon along with my Night Attack brother, Brian Brushwood. We're doing a talk at 3 p.m. in the PJ Sugar Theater about why we left Justin TV. We were chased off Justin TV when they switched to a video game focus, and why we wound up coming back to Twitch. It is kind of in a lot of ways the story of our little nomadic independent existence and our travails through networks and going fully independent, and why we're now back on that platform. I'm very proud of it. I think it's going to be a blast. It is this Saturday at TwitchCon, 3 p.m., called The Leftovers.
Wait, that's a HBO show.
Yeah, well, we're like that, except
sometimes it's just stuff in your fridge.
Yeah,
it's also that. Yeah. Hey, everybody. If you heard us allude to my editor's desk audio column at the $5 level and you want to get that, there's one easy way to do it. Go to patreon.com/DTNS. I just put up a column today, actually, about political interference and my opinions on it and what tech should do to properly combat it, which I don't think they're doing right now. So you can get that, plus the audio column, plus all kinds of other benefits at patreon.com/DTNS.
Loving your feedback. Keep it coming. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We are live Monday through Friday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC. And you can find out more at dailytechnewsshow.com/live.
It's a roundtable episode tomorrow with Nicole Lee and Ashley Esqueda. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Yay, Lady Roundtable.
My show in a long time. I apologize.
Oh, please. Everybody hurts sometimes, Tom.
Yeah.
Everybody hurts. Just got to remember to put all the notes down below, not
Above. Yeah. Also, yeah, I mean, everybody's a little sloppy
Don't look at
sometimes.
Discord. Discord's getting too interesting. Johnsonville Brats.
Man, REM always gets the like. They are probably the kings of '90s college radio. Is there another band that you would associate more
Not college radio.
With college,
90s, as a veteran of 90s college radio, I would say REM. I mean, U2 also, but
Yeah.
U2 became something that means something different. Whereas
Yeah.
REM sort of still has that.
REM's
REM? So would REM be the Beatles of '90s college radio?
And U2 Stones.
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean,
if
there are a
anything is
lot
the
of
Beatles
college
of
radio
anything.
bands that kind of went. Like
No,
I
there were a
think
lot
of
of
Counting
different
Crows as one of those that
Yeah.
just, like they'll
Counting
never
Crows
not
was
be.
You can
college
just name
radio?
a bunch of other
Oh, yeah.
bands from the 90s that were college radio bands, but we're saying we're saying REM is a cut above those.
Like
I
What
thought he was
about
just-
like
Now, REM actually kind of 80s maybe though, because I
what
kinda-
about like
started in
Dave
the late
Matthews
80s.
Band?
yeah, and that now you're starting to get late 90s, early
Yeah.
2000s.
Like,
Oh, okay.
I mean, are you just trying to figure out what would be considered an iconic? Like, if you said
No,
college radio band,
it's one of those tags that is unique to me because I can't think of another band that like you can say like, oh, this is a new wave band. This is a gangster rap act. This is a something like that, right? For whatever reason, REM just kind of has like this as time has moved on. I'm sure at a certain time you'd be able to rattle off 5 or 6 bands that were contemporaries to them, but REM to me is the band that always still gets
Spin Doctors.
90s
That's the
college.
other one.
They're
What
later.
about Toad the Wet Sprocket?
Toad the Wet Sprocket was
Later.
another one. Blind Melon.
Later. You guys are all
Blind-
naming
I
mid-90s
think-
ones.
I think Blind Melon was not college radio, really.
Oh, it's total college radio. That's like the only people who would listen to that band.
But they had like one album and then the lead singer died.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's
So, which
that
doesn't,
make
you know,
it
that's
not a
unfortunate
college-
and everything. I'm just saying REM is, I mean, how many albums do they have? Like 15?
Well, I'm not saying that REM isn't the like top of the heap. I'm just thinking of bands that you
Well-
associate when you say college radio.
Well, but maybe it's top of the heap. Number one college band of the 90s. King of the Hill.
King of the Hill. What about Lauryn Hill or Diggable Planets? Christie's came to the obvious conclusion.
Now, we're forgetting Lauryn Hill, one of the most popular college
Bob
radio
Mould.
acts.
I think when I think of Lauryn, I think of college. Like it's
Well, yeah, but I would say
Who's the
Lauryn
dude?
Hill is in the
So,
hip hop
wait.
genre much more than.
Because
What?
you would say, all right, Tom,
sorry. Well, hold on, real quick. Christie's came to the obvious conclusion too long, or is it good?
I think Christie's came to the obvious conclusion is
That's a good one. That was very good.
Properly identified.
what would you say, Tom, is the first big REM album that you can remember? Don't Google.
I'm typing Christie's came to the obvious
Oh,
conclusion. I am not Googling. I can't remember the
Good
name.
one.
I'm blanking on the names now.
Out of
but
Time. Was that one of the early ones or later ones?
it's the first one that I remember being aware of is the one with End of the World as We Know It. Whichever album.
Would that be Automatic for the People?
That automatic
No,
Was the
no,
one
that
with-
one's later.
Bit
what
out
was
of
the one
time.
with Stand?
Stand is Losing My Religion. That's later.
No, I think Stand is not on the same album as Losing My Religion. We're gonna have to Google this, guys. Sorry.
Google it. I'm Googling. I'm on it.
Was a
Stand
single
in
album.
Place where you live now, face west.
Think about direction, wonder why. Yeah, Out of Time, 1991. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for your wisdom.
Stand was on Out of Time. Losing My Religion was the one after that, then, right?
Yeah. Losing My Religion would be Automatic for the People. Then Monster was the one after that. That's like
Wait, Automatic for the People is Losing My Religion? I thought Losing My
that's
Religion.
like Monster is like bang bang blame
Yeah.
blame and
Mhm. Don't forget Murmur from 1983.
No, I wouldn't.
So, I mean, is this just an REM question or is this a college radio band question?
I was just trying to think of like, okay, so when REM becomes this like underground, and I guess that's the REM exists in this very weird space where there was still an underground, but because of cable and MTV, they were just about to turn all these kind of underground acts that wouldn't have fit in top 40 radio at the time and turn them into superstars. And REM is kind of the last band that really had super fame there, that kind of like, they definitely had big videos and they were more famous than they would have been if they were just, you know, a college rock hit. But they're still of that more than, like, let's say U2, which probably would have been a comparable band.
Yeah,
but
it was at the time for sure. In 1988,
Elvis.
REM and U2 were right alongside each other.
I mean, are you trying to define at what point they stopped becoming a college radio band, or
No,
like?
I mean, I'm just trying to talk about early 90s rock.
Yeah.
Like many times in my life, I'm really just looking to delve into pedantic
Well,
music.
it's interesting because REM is kind of the poster child, but there were so many acts around at the same time. And whether it was like Lollapalooza or the Horde Tour or something like that, there was literally a constellation of college radio bands, and they all had a very similar sound, right? They all just featured like a guitar, a bassist, and drums. And if they wanted to get fancy, they would have like a rhythm guitar too.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody would ever confuse an REM song, but that's because of Michael Stipe's lyrics.
I'm not saying they would confuse it. I'm just saying they all had
the college radio sound, though. That's
we're basically talking about like the birth of indie rock as
I think
it would be defined today, and we're calling it college radio.
And also, wait, is college radio what we are calling popular, quote unquote, kind of underground rock, right? At the time, that wasn't grunge. Are we excluding grunge from
yes
college rock?
Yeah, I would say yes. Grunge is its own genre.
There was a lot of bleed over, like Pearl Jam,
Smithereens, Peter Murphy, Webb Wilder, Delamitri, The Front, The Church, XTC. That's
wait, is XTC really? I always thought XTC was more of a like that.
Melissa Etheridge, even Peter Himmelman. I'm reading most of these from a WPGU playlist.
Oh my God.
Program
That Tom just happened to have under his desk handy.
from March 5th, 1990.
I swear to God, the next time there's a live event, someone's just gonna hit you like one of those elves in Golden Axe, and there's just gonna be some magical little relic of the past that'll fall out of your pocket.
Wait a minute. What about Green Day? Does Green Day count?
Green Day is punk.
Yeah, but it was definitely born.
It became more mainstream, but they were definitely a punk band.
But it was definitely. I mean, college campuses were where it kind of dug their roots.
No, they're an interesting test case for that because they
Yeah.
kind of straddle. They're not grunge, but they kind of have a foot over there, and they're punk, but they're also college.
Well, no, I mean they are far more, you know, in the lineage of, I mean, in terms of popular music that people would know, like it's more the Ramones and more the Sex Pistols than the kind of like more melodic Pixies sort of influence that weaved its way through grunge.
Yeah, no, that's fair, but they are. I don't know that I think of them in that vein because we were playing Green Day on the University of Texas at Austin College Station when I was in grad school.
Now, I will say they were always a band that didn't want to be fenced in by the punk thing, and they always kind of yearned to be their own sort of sound. So Green Day is an interesting one. But I guess that's the thing, is that that became that moment in the 90s when MTV became an institution and not like the revolution that it kind of was in the 80s, where it was like shocking that this thing existed and just became like, oh no, wait, we understand we can change wherever pop culture goes. And you had these labels that were making acts that were ready made for MTV. Like that's where I think grunge is an interesting subgenre because it went from 0 to 60 really fast. It was like a
Mhm.
music scene that all of a sudden the top 8 bands in it, every scene has 8 bands that you would like list in whatever order is the top 8. All 8 became famous overnight, right?
Well,
All 8 were on MTV almost immediately.
I was still program director in 91, I think, when a guy from Toronto was visiting and he was like, have you heard of Nirvana? I'm like, I don't know what that is. He's like, it's this band out of Seattle and they are worth checking out. They're really interesting. They're really great. And so I checked them out and I was like, oh, this is amazing. So I got in touch with the record company and I was like, hey, we're going to add these guys to the playlist. And they're like, oh, that's great. We're totally getting a wave. And like, I don't really know, but in my memory, within a month, Nirvana was like a worldwide sensation. I'm not trying to make it sound like I helped that along. I meant I was part of that wave. Like I was right there when suddenly everyone immediately went, wait, Nirvana exists. And boom, they were everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I mean, I can vividly remember the music video. It's a great song, Smells Like Teen Spirit, but the video was like part of the huge hitness of that song being what it became.
Oh yeah, I mean,
remember MTV's Buzz Bin? That was like, it was like the like alt grunge whatever. And yeah, in fact, I think we've talked about this on GDI in the past, but that was Losing My Religion, same thing. Iconic music video. Still remember, the angels and the whole thing.
I remember going from not knowing who Nirvana was when that guy mentioned him to me to like within a month, there was Pearl Jam and everything was everywhere,
Yeah.
Crazy.
In fact, I might have heard, like, I think I found out about Nirvana from MTV. I can't imagine where else I would have, because I remember how old I was and I wasn't listening to college radio. I was listening to like top 40 pop stuff.
My big source of new music was Live 105 in San Francisco before, when they still had a majority staff of DJs, human DJs, and one of them, Steve Masters.
Oh yeah, he's a legend.
He's a legend, but when he started on Live 105, he started creating these late night radio shows that he brought in a lot of imported music from Britain and Australia and Europe. And so he kind of built this following and he started incorporating a lot of other bands that weren't popular at the time. It kind of sucks that they went a little more corporate in the later years, but no, he's a legend, and he helped, at least in the Bay Area, he helped support a lot of artists who wouldn't have gotten radio play otherwise.
This is kind of crazy. Never mind.
Because I just met you.
Yeah. Nevermind was only expected to sell 250,000 records, which was at the time on par with Sonic Youth's album Goo. But that's released in 91. And Cobain is dead by 94. Like that's how quick that Nirvana, like we think of Nirvana in these like gigantic terms, but that was like a comet across the sky. They were like super famous, then super troubled, then gone. Because like, when is
Sonic Youth and Green Day both went through a similar thing too, where they went from being very hardcore to very radio friendly.
Yeah.
Of course,
What about the Pixies? That's college radio, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
Pixies, certainly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Pixies might be the band that is transcended. Pixies might be the band that has lived forever, the longest consecutive title reign of college radio.
Yeah, well, because they succeeded REM in a way, not directly musically or anything like that, but like the REM was sort of, after Losing My Religion, just kind of hit a bit of a slide. And the Pixies were super strong right then.
Well, I think also the Pixies were so influential to grunge, but grunge really burned hot and burned out fairly fast. Like as a genre, it really only has like 5 years, maybe 6 years on top. And then we start to get a different, that's when like rap rock starts to happen and Korn and like a lot of, a lot of these other bands sort of take over. But the Pixies, which was so influential to grunge, wound up sounding more like what came after the sort of like big butt rock explosion in like the early
Butt rock.
aughts. And that was
One
like
of the worst terms ever.
butt
Butt
rock.
rock.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know what it is. I know what you're talking about, but boy, do I hate that term.
it is. But it's so you can hear those
You-
crunchy
you-
guitars.
Yeah, you know it. You know it.
I'm doing a thing, and then somebody else raps like that's
It
butt.
sounds like something you would have heard on the Muppet Show. What
Yeah.
you did just then.
Yeah, animal.
Mam, 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 mam.
What they say about death metal, everyone sounds like Cookie Monster when they sing.
Yeah, well,
We used to call it grunge. We used to call it har har music because everybody sounded like they were saying har har.
It's all your vowels; they all blend.
Smoke, har har har.
But it's like
well, it was
if you were-
funny. Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, sorry, just real quick. If you were to go on a large enough timeline and you say like, oh, here's the Pixies and here's Arcade Fire, you would think that they were closer together in terms of when they kind of came out, because a lot of their sound sort of like flows into each other more than the actual circuitous route that we took musically to get there.
That's funny though, because I think of Pixies as that band I listened to in Austin in the 90s. And I think of Arcade Fire as something younger kids listen to.
Oh, love Arcade Fire.
Yeah.
Love them. Holy crap. But yeah, that was certainly not way after the 90s. The TV mounter, the guy who was a musician, said, well, what do you do? He said, I play bass in a rock band, which is funny because it's like these days when someone says that, I'm like, well, what kind of rock? Indie rock, punk rock, hair band, like what kind of rock? And he was like, I don't really know how to answer that. And I was sort of like, I cannot be the first person to ask you that question. You guys should kind of know like your rock genre. So if like I go to one of your shows in LA, I would kind of have an idea. And so then it turned into, well, we're kind of hard, but our lead singer is really into Michael Jackson. So there's some jazz influences. And he sort of trailed off. I mean, he was working on my TV, so whatever, I was just being nosy, but it was kind of funny where it's like rock music doesn't mean anything anymore. I mean, it basically means we're still playing instruments with our bodies.
Well,
right?
you're not doing classical, you're not doing jazz, and you're not doing country or hip hop. So
or electronic, really. Although certainly there's crossover with that too. It's like it really it requires some follow-up questions, and I still don't know what kind of music it is.
I like jazz because jazz can mean all kinds of things.
Right. Of course. Yeah. I don't know enough about jazz to even really know my jazz genres correctly.
Modern jazz and bebop. It's like if somebody says they play jazz, that can mean a lot of different things.
Right. I know my dad used to like what he called cool jazz, and I did not. That's all I know. But that was like a radio station, and who knows what kind of music they were playing.
And classical too. Classical encompasses all kinds of styles. So rock has just elevated to the level of those more heritage forms. I think I would argue.
Yes, I would say so.
I just found out that Gallium did not get accepted into Audible because I recorded the open and closes, which are the I recorded the open and closes, and I had Jim Metzendorf do all the rest of the files. Jim did all of his files properly. I accidentally recorded mine in stereo, whereas all of his files are mono, and they require all the files to be the same.
Oh, so it's not like they were like, no, we don't like your book.
No,
it's just that you have to do it. You have to do your intros.
Just an easy fix, but it was a dumb move on my part. However, it just means it'll be delayed a tiny bit. That's all. But it will come. Hey, we need to say goodbye to the video people. Thanks for watching. We love you. Thanks for hanging around. Audio people, stick around. There's more to come.
Goodbye, video folks.
Bye.
Bye.